So now we've protected ourselves against big problems. We're getting free money. Let's move into project number 3. What's coming?
This one's the math one. This one's the hardest one. And I don't want people to be intimidated. There's some easy ways to do this. But this is the one where you now pause for a second, because put yourself in this situation. You don't have high interest debt. You have all the life insurance, well, at least a good amount of life insurance that you need. You have disability insurance. If you died, your kids would be taken care of. Your liabilities are covered for the most part. You are getting some accounts built where somebody else is depositing money into those accounts for you. Like, that's a pretty solid financial picture, and we're just getting started, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot better than a lot of our country. So after Project 2, feel good about yourself if you are even starting on Project 3. Then don't be intimidated by the task that is figuring out the future, because really we're predicting the future of how much money will you need in retirement. So tell me this, Eric, how much should we go into this? Because the goal, Project 3, is to automate retirement savings. The bottom line is, by the end of Project 3, you should know, this was my total savings goal. I got this much of it from Project 2. Now I need to finish this much of it, and I need to automate that. And I need to decide which type of account that goes to. So that's Project 3.
Yeah.
And I wanted to summarize it like that because now I'm going to follow your lead, because I'm afraid to go too far into detail. I would never, but I might.
Yes. Well, I think that with this project, there are a couple of ways for people to figure out what that number is. So just for convenience, and I think that it can cover a lot of people and it's quicker, maybe do the quick and easy approach. And then if people really want to dig into a more precise calculation around what those numbers would be, again, there's a book here for you that you can pick up.
That you can play with, right?
Yeah.
There's a chart in here that is probably the easiest way to get through it. So in Project 3, there's a chart where you say, okay, I've saved this much, and there's 2 methods. There's the easy table, and then there's the nerd's math. And so if you're the nerd, go for it, right?
Yeah.
But the easy table, I just flipped to it. And basically you say, I've saved 2 times my annual income. So someone making $100,000 a year and they have $200,000 in their retirement accounts. That's 2 times their annual income saved up. Or if they have $400,000 in their accounts, then 4 times their annual income. So that's what that top row is, and each column represents that. Then, and I'm assuming
Do you have an image file?
For sure. And it's even in color, where this one's black and white, so that'll be better. And then you do your age on the left, and then the cross section, wherever those 2 things meet in the middle. I'll give you an example. So someone making $100,000 a year, having saved 2 times their income, so they have $200,000 in retirement, and they're 35 years old, they should be saving 15%. That's what it says. So this is super quick and easy. They should be saving 15% of their income. That's $15,000 a year if they're making $100,000. If they are 40 and at that same spot, they need to save 25%. So just kind of some of the interesting ways that, like, starting later requires you to catch up even more. And if you're starting at 50 years old, you have to save 70% of your income in that same situation. Now, that's to reproduce that same level of income. Most likely somebody in that stage is going to say, I know where I'm at. I'm just going to spend less in retirement. But anyway, the chart's there. That's
Perfect.
The easy table.
Awesome.
And then the more complicated one walks you through a process of risk-adjusted returns, and how do you calculate inflation into that exactly, and how would you get a number in the future of, this is what my nest egg needs to look like, and then back that back to today, and then it gives you an actual dollar amount instead of a percentage of income. It'll help you with a dollar amount to determine how much. And if you are thinking like, it's too generic for me to say, great example, someone making $500,000 is probably not going to need $500,000 in retirement. The higher the income, the more I think financial advisors often mess up in these calculations, because they look at somebody with $500,000 like, wow, we have to reproduce that. You're going to need these astronomical balances. When in reality, they're probably only spending 100, 200, and they're allocating the rest to a big chunk as taxes. And then the next chunk is like they're saving a lot probably, or they might be buying properties because that's their thing. Yeah, but they're not going to always do that. Anyway, you get the idea. Once it starts to get out of the this is the easy answer, then you need more precise calculations. And when you get closer to retirement, you need more precise calculations. I'm trying to give you the easy one for 20 and 30 and maybe 40-year-olds, but As you get beyond that, it needs to be more precise than this.
And it's interesting because we haven't spent a lot of time on Project 3, but this one does take some time
Yeah.
and can take more time to figure out, make that plan. And then again, you've talked about it already here, is automating things to get to where you're building habits that you don't have to fight yourself over. But I guess what you've talked about is there a target goal for retirement, or is that something that the individual has to decide, right? If I've got saved up 2x my annual income, to save, to put aside 15%, is there an end target for that, or is that just a good rule of thumb based on?
No, there's an end target, but
Okay.
I'm making it easier by giving people's percentages.
Yeah.
There's absolutely an end target.
Okay.
And that's partly what I mean by more precise calculations.
Perfect.
So when you get to the point where you're making 200, but you want to target 120 of annual income in retirement, well, now all of a sudden we don't have a simple math problem to just throw a percentage at. We need to actually target exact numbers. Yeah, it's tricky. It is tricky, but I don't think it's overly complicated. One thing that people oftentimes get really confused about is future dollar and present dollars. So like it gets confusing because, well, I maybe need $6 million or something in retirement, but is that really $6 million, or does that feel like 2 million of today's dollars? And people get confused and they're like, I don't need 6 million. I only need 2. And it's like, well, I think you mean 2. You need 2, therefore you do need 6 because of future dollar. Anyway, so that's where the inflation adjusted returns is what I meant to say. That helps with some of that, but it's too much for this conversation.
Perfect.
But if you're really that much of a nerd, like talk to us or read it.
Yeah. And at this point, we are now still kind of saving and investing for retirement.
Yeah.
Step 2, most of that free money was for retirement, with the exception of kind of HSA / the employee stock purchase plans. But we're talking a lot about retirement. I want to have fun, and fun isn't happening yet. There's another project or two that is happening before just the fun money. So after Project 3,
Yeah,
what
let's
comes next?
do if you're okay, I think I can do this quick. I'm going to burn through the actual steps of 3.
Okay.
Believe it or not, calculating how much was task 1 of Project 3.
Okay, yeah.
So that's
yeah.
just all we've done so far. So then the rest I'm going to go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So determining how much, I've got that easy table. Task 2 is you need to, and this is that Roth versus traditional video that's been our most watched one.
Yeah.
It is reviewing your current tax situation versus your projected retirement tax situation. You need to understand the difference between the two. Is your tax situation going to get worse or get better? And that could be many factors. That could be your belief around government changes and laws and things like that. Or that could be changes in your personal income situation. Just quick hint to everybody. Everyone thinks their tax situation is going to be awful in retirement. Couple reasons. One, everyone is really upset about governments no matter what's going on, and they don't believe. And we have really low tax rates right now compared to what it's been in the past. So most people think tax rates will go up. However, here's the hint. Even though tax rates go up, most retiree tax situations get better because they drop tax brackets because their income goes down. And it's not necessarily that their lifestyle goes down, it's that their reportable income goes down. And you have more control over it in retirement. So consider your tax situation now and in retirement. Then consider whether you are retiring before 59 and a half or after. If you are retiring before, we need to start thinking about ways to get money out of retirement accounts without the 10% penalty, or saving in accounts that don't have a 10% penalty to get money out before 59 and a half. So that's a key component of where you're going to put money, because you know later you need to get it out before 59 and a half. So that's task 3. Task 4 is, now that you know how much and you know your tax situation now and then, you should have a better feel for Roth versus traditional and those types of things. And now you need to allocate to various tax situations. So I have 2 examples in here that that walk you through. You know, if you're saving $30,000 a year, then this much should go to the traditional 401k. This much will be matched. This much should go to Roth. This much should go to an after-tax brokerage account, and this much should go to maybe a Roth IRA. So all of those different destinations, you want to automate all of that. So you talked about having fun. To me, obviously I enjoy this, so this is fun. But let's pretend that I didn't, because most people don't. So you are automating your savings to all of those locations. Save what is required to reach the goal, And now you know everything beyond that. If you want to save more because that's fun for you, great. But if you want to do a vacation because that's fun for you, also great, because you know that your retirement is on track. You know you're on target to reach there. So to me, that's where we start to have fun, is when you are able to play enough financial offense to exceed the retirement savings targets and therefore be able to spend more and have more fun.
Nice.
Okay, so that was for Eric. I'll follow your lead as to whether or not we give. I know sometimes it's nice for people to see examples. I'm happy to talk about the examples, Susan and Jeff, but I'm going to keep going on task 5 and 6, and then you tell me if we come back to that.
No, keep going.
Okay, so task 5 is then you need to review that whole overall savings plan, the free money that you're getting, the allocations to all of these tax structures. And in part of this process, now you need to really think about, like, I should invest this money. Like, don't forget to invest this money. And then task 6 is more of an education piece. You really need to think about the benefits of investing in all 3 tax types. And we talk about this in that Roth versus traditional video, where one of the main reasons for having Roth and traditional and maybe after-tax brokerage accounts is called degrees of freedom. It's the concept of having the ability to pull multiple different levers to control your future situation, like having the ability in the future to go in multiple paths. That's fantastic. And it really affords a lot of retirees incredible tax control. So having the benefits of all those different tax types, so Roth, traditional, and after tax. And real estate is kind of part of that after tax bucket generally.
Well, it sounds like this project, there's a lot going on, right?
Totally.
And so I hear a lot of the things that you're saying. There are people who, again, are very DIY around this, and they will take this and they will eat it up. There are others like myself where this is where I feel like at this point, I need to bring in someone to help me with this. Like, just my mind, where my mind is financially, this is where I mean, like, man, Zach, take that over for me, right?
Right.
Like, help me with this. And this isn't a pitch for anybody to do that. It's just, as you've been talking, that's where my mind went, is you're going to have people that are going to dive into that. They're going to nerd out about that. They're going to love that. And then as I hear that, I'm like, man, when I hear taxes, I'm like, somebody please do that for me.
It is the area that financial advisors have focused on the most. Retirement projections and then investing it. Generally, most of us get paid to invest. Some, we've talked about this on the other session, so we won't go into this, but some will just have you pay for advice. But that advice is very centered around retirement projections. So yeah, there are resources available there. Let's talk about how you make this decision if you're doing it all yourself. So you've come to the conclusion that you need to save $30,000 a year. And then this is where, Eric, maybe it's another conversation, because we're trying to fit the full 7 projects here. But even within this one, the strategies of how you choose between 401k, IRAs, Roth 401k, Roth traditional, after-tax brokerage accounts, kids savings accounts, which is a whole different goal. It's not even part of this conversation, right? But that is a little bit tricky. I think people need to realize that saving is 90% of it, and whether you put it in the right account is only 10% of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, if you mess up because you put all of it in pre-tax, there are people out there that feel like, oh, I wish I would have done this different. But very few of them are like, I wish I wouldn't have saved so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of tax strategy in the future to work on that. So I guess my point is, the most important thing is figure out how much to save. Actually save that. If you're trying to figure this all out on your own, those are your 2 key things, and then at least try to invest it. And that's it. So don't be intimidated. But yeah, of course, there are people, that's what we do. We'd love to help people, but yeah, that's available.
Well, I know that there's so much in our Roth versus traditional video got a lot of attention because of people wanting to make that right decision. And it seems like anytime that I make a decision or I buy something, the very next video I see on YouTube is what's wrong with the thing that I just bought, like the weaknesses of the decision that you just made, Eric. So YouTube does a really good job of that for me. But I think that people are hit with so much messaging of you've got to do this or else you're losing out on all this money or these opportunities or whatever else it is. And so I think that what you just said is like, so much of it is like, look, if you have the habit of setting aside that amount of money, that's a good thing. And there are things that will, yeah, sure, you can make or lose or have places where you can fine tune these dollars. But I feel like the sales side of the financial world is trying to target somebody, tell them you made a mistake, that's why you should use me. in this conversation. And I think I'm trying to tell people, like, be careful what you watch, right? Like, this whole conversation isn't you're doing it wrong, come work with us. It's if you're at this point, you're doing a lot of things really, really well.
Right. We've talked about this before. Fear agitates people and gets them to move, right? Way easier to get attention by freaking people out than it is to say, you're fine. You're going to be fine. So in the financial advisor industry, our value is on the margins, meaning you, Eric, save. You're doing the hard work. Our job is to get you from 90% of the work that you just did, which is the actual savings, and improve the very end, improve the 10%. And I think financial advisors, and by the way, financial advisors used to get paid for only doing investing. And some advisors still try to get away with that. The public has demanded way more than that, right? And I like it. I'd rather deliver the full holistic planning approach. But the point is, our job is to inch you a little bit more forward on the investment side, more efficient, lower cost when possible, more the right level of diversification, not too much, not too little, because that's actually a real concept. Too much is a problem, and sometimes, and depending on your goals, then fine-tuning the actual cash flow decisions in retirement, fine-tuning the tax strategy, fine-tuning the estate plan, fine-tuning the kids and college savings goals. Anyway, our goal is to get you from, you did 90%, if we can do 10% in all of the categories, and then secondarily, if we can alleviate the burden of all of that, that gives you the knowledge that it's all coming together in one cohesive plan, so people are willing to pay for that too. So that's, but back to the projects, because I know you always like to understand like the motivations and the thought process. Good advisors know that their clients are doing the hard work and that they have to work hard to improve on the margins.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that we're missing from this project before we move on to the next part?
Just don't be too intimidated. Don't give up. Don't be stressed. You probably will not get project 3 right So you know how we talked about in project 1 and 2, you were like, we set this up and then we don't have to think about it anymore. Project 3, you do annually.
Right.
You revisit these calculations every single year. So it's something you have to do, and then you have to realize even if you do it and you don't get it right, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it feels like up to this point, a lot of the projects, there will be pivoting, but the previous projects, it's just a lot of things of like, it's pretty set in stone here. There are things that you could be in the middle of project 3 and doing everything right, but a life event happens and kind of derails project 3 to a point where you have to revisit it and say, okay, a year, 2 years have gone by since my wife got cancer or whatever else. Let's come back and see where we're at now that we're ready to breathe again and keep moving.
Totally. Let's say that you're going to play offense. You're deciding like, I'm going to play offense. And this might sound familiar to you, Eric, but you're going to go and start a business and you're just going to play a ton of offense and try to create something brand new that nobody else has seen before, right? So that is a pivot in the Soderbergh life.
Yeah.
And that's going to derail some of the automated stuff in project 3. In fact, you might have to come in and unhook retirement savings and stop doing some of that to really bet big on the offense side of your life that then will even allow you to do more of project 3 later.
Yeah.
So that's okay. I can't emphasize this enough. Like, you can't beat yourself up over doing some financial planning and making some decisions. Like, if you decide improving your financial offense is the most important thing for you to do, go for it. Go for it. And if your financial advisor tells you like, you shouldn't start a business, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, because if you don't save this $10,000 to your retirement plan this year, you're never gonna be able to retire. I don't think that's true. In fact, the wealthiest people I know are business owners.